not a game, not the game that I go out there and die for and play every game like it's my last. Not the game. We're talking about practice, man. I mean, how silly is that? And we're talking about practice.
Best believe that I'm top 3. The only thing is I'm not 2 and I'm not 3. Put me anywhere other than one that is not me. It's beef, we strut a nigga block, that's chopped cheese. No peace, the butterfly sting him, that's Ali. You reach, I teach him with the handle, that's Kyrie. Machines you hook like a Roman, that's IV. You a sheep, I'ma go, it's a difference, so watch me. You weak, all hooks, no punches, so block these. They mock me, I just show them how it goes. Try to stomach this thug life. They ring got the nose, bandana on the grip. All heads coming out the foe. Connected from Cali to New York, niggas, so let it go. Made for this, nigga, I eat bars and drink flows. Thinking you woke into your third eye, peephole. Line for line, this shit too easy, it's like a free throw. Mastered the game too early, this bitch a cheat code. It ain't a game, these niggas lame, they bring a shame. If I'm with an officer, it's a number in his name. We ain't the same, you want the easy pass, tell him change his lane. Shit, I've been through the fire, you can't stand the rain, take an aim. Tell him runner, he can try his best. Drive a car named after me, that's why I'm in the vet. Laughing these niggas once again, and I ain't break a sweat. Number 1 at everything I do, that's why I'm one West. The Lord is not the God of the dead, so when I die, coming back for my spot, so forever I'm top 3. Just tell him to watch this, janitor with the mop stick. You gon' need a defensive lineman to block this. On point when I bomb shit, 10 for 10, I do not miss. I'm barking with a full bulldog, it is not mixed. They can see that my mind's sick, I don't write, I find shit. I don't like it, then I'll switch. If I touch it, it's diamond. Tell a bitch that I'm God sent. It ain't because my kicks is built like 5'6", 5'7" is my bitch. Dangerous, high risk. I lose it, get another one. You think I'm talking about a girl? I'm talking about another gun. We here now? Hey, look, it is what it is now. We don't fuck with the house niggas. We burn the crib now. I'm ahead now, and I hope they can head now. I don't care if you think it's it, nigga. I don't fear clowns. Silences make it sound like raindrop. That's a quiet storm. Get the job done in the view or get fired on. If you niggas standing for nothing, what you dying for? If you put real with real, that's how I was born. Walking this bitch ready for war. I'm in riot form. I want these niggas to see me flex. That's why I am armed. I shouldn't live in the crib, nigga. I should buy a farm to go through this shit so effortless. Best believe that I'm top 3. Only thing is I'm not 2 and I'm not 3. Best believe that I'm top 3. Only thing is I'm not 2 and I'm not 3. Best believe that I'm top 3. Only thing is I'm not 2 and I'm not 3.
Leave the gun. Take the gun.
Mafia.
Relax and sit back on niggas and kick my feet up. Time to put the pressure on, watch I turn the heat up. I go everywhere, so anywhere we can meet up. Cold word Benjamin, watch them wolves eat up. Whoever don't think that I'm top 3, tell them speak up. I'm brainwashed and closed-minded. Fuck you gonna teach us? God's here above all, tell them boys reach up. I can chase you with a straight shot or I can sneak up.
Leave the gun. Take the gun.
Mafia.
Relax and sit back on niggas and kick my feet up. Time to put the pressure on, watch I turn the heat up. I go everywhere, so anywhere we can meet up. Cold word Benjamin, watch them wolves eat up. Whoever don't think that I'm top 3, tell them speak up. I'm brainwashed and closed-minded. Fuck you gonna teach us? God's here above all, tell them boys reach up. I can chase you with a straight shot or I can sneak up. Or I can remix your whole grill, change your features. In the booth with a mask on, straight fever. You had to choose between me or death, take neither. It's really no different. We the same people. In the morning, reading your horoscope, make your day deadly. Put your energy in the earth. When I leave you buried, it's levels to the shit. Tell them niggas stay ready. Move too quick, and they hoping that they can catch me. Say that we the best, they got a problem. Tell them speak up. I ain't cocky, I'm trying to see something. Tell them speak up. It's one West World or nothing. Tell them speak up. Everybody know how we coming. Tell them speak up. Say that we the best, they got a problem. Tell them speak up. I ain't cocky, I'm trying to see something. Tell them speak up. It's one West World or nothing. Tell them speak up. Everybody know how we coming. Tell them speak up. I'm a lion walking around on this planet looking for seeds. Martyr corners in your head up, fucking up your seeds. God knew who I was in the womb, he made a leader. I was front row to them shootouts, a front seater. You was somewhere in the back, a nosebleeder. Had to fight my way to the top, it was so eager. Ask who was 2 or 3, I don't know neither. One Westworld, you gonna sink or float either. You gonna hop the ship or we gonna make you walk the plank. Feeling down, all I do is call a bang. Pose was a Drake. Your village like I called the town. And showing up in big moments, you always strength. I don't smoke dead ops, but I'll toast a drink. Gotta stay on point, you a ghost, you blank. Niggas think they saw the ghost, but nope, it's me. It's either One West, nigga, and we hold the key. Say that we the best, they got a problem. Tell them speak up. I ain't cocky, I'm trying to see something. Tell them speak up. It's One West real to nothing. Tell them speak up. Everybody know how we coming. Tell them speak up. Say that we the best, they got a problem. Tell them speak up. I ain't cocky, I'm trying to see something. Tell them speak up. It's One West real to nothing. Tell them speak up. Everybody know how we coming. Tell them speak up. Tell them speak up.
Hey, by a show of hands.
Tell them speak up.
I'm just trying to
Tell them speak up.
Who think they the best in here?
Tell them speak up.
Okay.
Tell them speak up.
I got you.
Messed up, no. Bad news is to beat your home, nigga. Yeah. Go on, get on that ass real quick one time. 144, baby.
They said you get on, you gon' represent. I said, of course. Soon as they crank that bitch, I ride that bitch just like a horse. She about to go dumb, yeah, bitch, be whole guard. You ain't know they call me Obi-Wan. I come with the force. You gon' ride, yeah, of course. Get it lit up like a torch. You even low on this Lord, so that bitch is either or. Yeah, I know them niggas ain't cut like that. I swear I'm to our core. Wait up, let me make a call right quick. I'ma start another war. I was hurting when she left, but I don't care about anymore. I need a Vaselina like my Nina Puffer for it. Took a Zoc, watch the dark. Matter of fact, like the dark. Any problem, let them come. We gon' snatch they soul like Shang Tsung. Put them out of service, keep them tools like Miss Harper Free. Try to hold me, it's way too late. I'm headed straight to the safe. Throw that one up like a trophy. I'm that nigga, ain't no debate. Told them boys we taking over. Call them up like set the date. This shit a piece of cake. Yeah, my bitches came from Whole Foods. Told them put on that top 3. Then bring me my house shoes. Don't make excuses, make moves. These niggas ungrateful, gotta show them UPK rules. I make hits like I can't lose. They said you get on, you gon' represent. I said of course. Soon as they crank that beat, I ride that bitch just like a horse. She about to go dumb, yeah, bitch, the whole guard. You ain't know they call me Obi-Wan. I come with the force. You gon' ride, yeah, of course. Get it lit up like a torch. You even low on this Lord, so that bitch is either or. Yeah, I know them niggas ain't cut like that. I swear I'm to our core. Yeah, I just got off the call. I'ma start another war. Spit a plate up with my niggas. Get your knife and your fork. They ain't locked in with the count and with the speaking to me fart. Yeah, I just took the floor. Ain't no cowards in my campaign. They can't stop the campaign. Tell them bring the champagne. They know I'm a champion. They can see the outcome. Get them niggas bad, got them tied down and out there. Can't do with them steppers, niggas been down since day one. We run up the bands, bitch, like Dylan. They say you get on, you gon' represent. I said of course. Soon as they crank that beat, I ride that bitch just like a horse. Yeah, about to go dumb, yeah, bitch, we whole guard. You ain't know they call me Obi-Wan. I come with the force. You gon' ride, yeah, of course. Get it lit up like a torch. You either low or this low, so that bitch is either or. I told you niggas, you ain't cut like that. I swear I'm to our core. And I just made the call. We gon' start another war. Yeah.
One West, 125th Street. Look, y'all put y'all faith in presidents like they gon' change this country. Run the league and let y'all play cause y'all gon' make a money. Fuck Obama, he ain't come here on cargo slave ship. What the fuck he do for blacks in his administration? I'm waiting, patient like a saint. Black, Hispanic, Native, they hate your ass the same. Paint Christ in their image, paint you as a slave. God ain't all love, scriptures say he hate. African soul niggas, they know we not the same. School to prison pipeline to get you off the streets. Put you in the cell toilet connected to the sink. Molested as a kid, she prostituted as a teen. The byproduct of Martin Luther King dream. They just took the yoke off, my nigga, we ain't free. We living bleak in these wastelands of poverty. If you don't know the truth, then the lies sound promising. Prophecy See, gift and the curse. Dylan started killing, they was sitting in church. Black folk forgave him, man, this shit is absurd. You should never love your enemy, that shit ain't gon' work. Yeah, fuck dying on your knees, you better die in glory. Man, I joined the UPK, taught me the art of warring. I took a nigga life like mine to be recognized. I feel that pain every day, it can't be reconciled. Pops banging, my sister a prostitute. My brother got life, and somehow I still found the truth. War ready, no cowards, no excuse. Fuck reparations, you can't bandage no open wounds. Blood on the leaves, body swing hung from a noose. I was on a run in Nashville and I found the truth. I called the school, class was being held by the shock on my life. I want to be a gangster like a cop. Do this for my brothers, real brotherhood. Everything we do, we got it out this book. My nigga, I can never be no African. UPK the only authorized acronym. I'm passionate about my brothers and sisters. We in hell, I ain't got nothing against them. That's another religion. If it ain't under your honor, ain't me murdered by them and got a hug from your honor. That's the way out for a coward in my observation. They don't fear the Lord, they indoctrinated. Wolves in sheep clothing, Joe Osteen. Real priests bringing back black royalty. One West on my headpiece, ranking order. Can't let them trick me off the streets, I gotta raise my daughter. I got brothers at the border ducking ice agents. I got the name change, it was life changing. My family thought it was a game, put on all black, they said I was going through a phase. There's more of us in jail than it was slaves. Chose by the Lord, we could never be the same. Soon as they born, the wicked go astray. They left the truth, they wasn't with us anyway. Niggas weak, they just saying anything to be truthful. We don't want no cowards anyway. Look, coronavirus, that's a plague. You don't get too much sleep when you waking up the dead. First camp, I cut off all my dreads. I took an oath when that oil.
Mic check. Mic check. Mic. 1 second, bear with me. Turn it down for me. All right. Shalom. Yahweh Bashim Yashar Brakathum to all the brothers. Shalom Yahashim Alatham Bashim Yahshar to all the sisters. With the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under Commandant General Yohana. The Friday night Lashawan Qadash class, go ahead and give it up for the Lord. Let's see. 1 second, bear with me. 1 second. All right. Well, it's the again, it's the Lashawan Qadash class we do every Friday, you know what I'm saying, nationwide, where we break down the scriptures, the Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans in its original tongue, right? The Lashawan Qadash, the holy or the separate tongue, right? In the Lashawan Qadash, we break down, we go into the scriptures, get the language so that we get the proper context and break down our culture, not only from a biblical standpoint, not only from a historical standpoint, as we do Monday through or Sunday through Thursday, but also every Friday and Saturday, we break it down from a linguistics perspective as well, so that you get the full 360 scope of Black, Hispanic, and Native American culture. You know what I'm saying? Unlike all these Christian churches, you know what I'm saying, out here that's flooding the streets, you know what I'm saying? They teach you, or they don't teach you nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's really a concert, you know what I'm saying, for the most part. But in the ISUPK, we teach Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans their culture from a 360 perspective, historical, biblical, and linguistic, so that we understand our culture so we could take it back. Because right now, our livelihood and our lives depend on it. All right. We're gonna get into that a little bit later, but you know what I'm saying, we're gonna get into the linguistics, you know what I'm saying, the routine of practice that we do every week. You know what I'm saying, get back in the full swing of things. So we usually start, you know what I'm saying, with the Lashawan Qadash alphabet. If you got any questions If you got any questions in class or in the chat, put in the class or put in the chat, raise your hand. This is the, you know what I'm saying, Friday night is the time for you to get all of your Lashawan Qadash related questions, or, you know what I'm saying, Hebrew if you don't understand what Lashawan Qadash, if you never heard of the term, if you've never heard Lashawan Qadash before, the Hebrew, the ancient Hebrew. If you got any Hebrew related questions or Lashawan Qadash related questions in the chat or in the room, put your hand up, put it in the chat. Make sure you got your learning tools, your learning utensils ready. We're gonna go over a couple things that's gonna be very important for the growth and for the growth and understanding and development of, you know what I'm saying, of our people, so that we can understand the language, right? So we're gonna go over a couple things. What else? And then we're gonna get into these scriptures and then break it down from a practical usage perspective, right? We're gonna start off with the alphabet. We got A, Ba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa, Za, Cha, Ta, Ya, Ka, La, Ma, Na, Sa, I, Pa, Za, Kwa, Ra, Sha, Ta. 1 second. All right. So if you, at this point, you know what I'm saying, you should make it, you know what I'm saying, and I know up in here, you know what I'm saying, during in class, we have all different levels. We have a few different levels of understanding of the language of the scriptures and all of that. You should start, you know what I'm saying, of course, you should start at the foundation, which is what we do up in here, right? So if you just starting out, or if you're just joining class, if you're just watching online, the first thing that you should do is get familiar with the Lashawan Qadash alphabet. So just like I just demonstrated, you should be able to recite the Lashawan Qadash alphabet from A to Ta, right? You should be able to recognize each character, recite it from A to Ta, just like you would your oppressor's language, right? Just like you would be able to say your ABCs from A to Z fluently and be able to recognize each letter, right? It's the same, that's the same zeal that we should have for our language and our culture, right? We're gonna be responsible for teaching the youth, right? Scriptures say, raise up a child the way that they should go, and so that they never depart from it, paraphrasing, right? So if we don't, for us to be able to teach our children the proper way to go, their language, their culture, we have to understand our language and our culture. So with that being said, we should do our due diligence from the foundation. And with the Lashawan Qadash, we want to start with the alphabet, being able to recite the alphabet from A to Ta, from beginning to end, fluently, and then be able to recognize each character, right? And then today, we're going to go over a couple basics. You know what I'm saying? The past couple weeks, we've been talking about a cheat sheet, right? The importance of having, understanding how to break down these scriptures. When you see maybe on Saturday Sabbath service, when we read the scriptures in the Lashawan Qadash, and then in the English, we may, you know what I'm saying, run into a long stream of characters where we don't know how to break them down. But this cheat sheet that we've been talking about the past couple weeks is going to help us be able to navigate through that with confidence. So it's a couple things that's gonna go into the cheat sheet. We're gonna run through it real quick. We went through past class. We had a couple past classes where we went through a cheat sheet, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. But I am just gonna write down a list of things that should be on that cheat sheet that we've talked about, and then we might review a little bit. You know what I'm saying, as we go. So if you got any questions as I'm going, feel free to stop me, or, you know what I'm saying, put it in the chat, or whatever the case is, and, you know what I'm saying, ask your question. And I'll be more than happy to stop, slow down, and go a little bit deeper into something if necessary. But for right now, I'm just gonna put the list up here so that, because at this point, especially as an officer, you should already have a cheat sheet in development, right? So as I go through this list, if you look at your cheat sheet, which you should have in front of you with your learning utensils, if there's anything that you find on your cheat sheet or that I write down today that you don't have on your cheat sheet, then feel free to ask. Definitely add it to your cheat sheet, and you know what I'm saying, we can get everybody caught up, right? So this is going to be pretty much the 4 components that you're going to see on your cheat sheet, right? Because this is what each phrase you're going to see in the Blue Letter Bible or Bible Hub. What is it? The concordance, Hebrew to English dictionary, right? These are the 4 components you're going to see as you're putting together words and phrases, as you're looking at the Lashawan Qadash, as you're reading the scriptures in the Lashawan Qadash. And this is going to be the whole basis of your cheat sheet right here. So you got a root word in each phrase. You're going to have a root word, and that root word may have a preposition, which you have down here, a possessive, which you have down here. As we already know, prepositions is always on the board. Prepositions come before a root word, right? And then possessives come after a root word. So you're going to have a root word, a preposition before, a possessive after, and then in the middle or at the end somewhere, at the end of the phrase, you may have a tense, right? Which may, it may consist of a couple things, right? So you got present tense, or you got you know what I'm saying, a plural tense, you got you got your Slovakia, you got plural tense, you got your servile tense, you have doing tense where something is being done, right? You have all these different tenses. We're gonna go over a couple of them here in a second, but that's all. If you understand these 4 things, then you have a pretty good grasp on the Lashawan Qadash, right? So that's the whole point of what we're doing, right? So root word, preposition, possessive, and tenses. If you look for those 4 things and you're able to recognize those things fluently, then you'll be able to read through the Lashawan Qadash pretty easily. So like in 1 second. All right, so if you're just starting your cheat sheet, or if you're just starting your cheat sheet, I will write these 4 things down. If you already got a cheat sheet going, just make sure you just check your cheat sheet, double check, and make sure you have these 4 things, because this is going to be the foundation of your understanding of the Lashawan Qadash. All right. Also, right alongside of these, you should definitely have your prepositions and possessives written down on your cheat sheet, right? You can, and also as you're writing down your cheat sheet, I want to stress again, you know what I'm saying, to make sure you keep, you know what I'm saying, it's good to have your notes, you know what I'm saying. I know, you know what I'm saying, the longer we stay in the, you know what I'm saying, the longer we attend class and be in the truth and all that, we're going to be taking notes. We might have like 4 or 5 notebooks full of notes. What I would advise brothers, what I would urge brothers and sisters to do is to keep a separate cheat sheet, like a little, maybe 1 or 2 sheets of paper where you have all of this information written separately that you can reference, separate from your, you know what I'm saying, stack of notes that you've been taking for X amount of years, right? So as you're doing this, just make sure you have as we go through the material tonight, just make sure you're writing this on a separate, a separate part of your notebook that's easy to access, that you can reference quickly, right? Maybe in your stack of notebooks or whatever, maybe in your notebooks you might have a more extensive breakdown of the prepositions and the possessives, for example. But on your cheat sheet, you just want it to be straight and concise to the point so that you can reference it quickly, right? So that you don't have to flip through a whole stack of notebooks. All right, so you got root, preposition, possessive, tense, right? Then you're going to have your prepositions and your possessives, all of your prepositions and your possessives that you see throughout the scriptures, right? And if you notice here, I have certain ones, underlined, right, in red. Some prepositions, even though all of these are pretty, all of these you see in the scriptures, right, in practical usage, as we're going to go through in a minute. But some of them, you may see more often than others, right? So you got all of these, we're not going to go through them right now unless, necessary. But you got all of these. Just make sure you have them in your notes. And then the ones that are boxed in blue are the ones, as we talked about, right? So I'm going to add to this list, right? So you should have on your cheat sheet prepositions and possessives, right? And then make sure you familiarize yourself with all of them really, but especially the ones that you see more often, like ha, right? Ba, which means in, ha meaning the, wa, and, right? Things that you see constantly. Like, as you're reading through the scriptures, you might see waha, salakia, waya, salakia. You might see certain things repeat itself, right? Right? So waya, and he, waya dabar, and he said, waya amor, waya shema, right? And he heard, or you might see that a lot. You're actually going to see that a lot. Just make sure you're familiar with the things or the prepositions that's going to constantly repeat itself, right? And then be familiar with there are a couple prepositions that if you add them to the beginning of a word, like ma, right, or sha, it may change the word completely. Like we went over a couple weeks ago, shapat versus mashapat, where the word shapat means judge, but you add mashapat, it turns into judgment, because we know that the prefix ma or preposition ma means of or from, right? So the literal translation is of judge, mashapat, or judgment, because a judgment comes from a judge. So just make sure you understand that. Prepositions and possessives that change the word completely. And then sha, right? So as we went over in the first Sabbath service that we had in Killeen, we went over Genesis chapter 1, and we saw, the Most High separating creating a firmament between the waters, right? So we know that the word mayum is water, but you add a sha in front of mayum, it becomes shamayim, which means heaven, right? But the prefix sha means which or pertaining to, right? So shamayim is the literal translation is pertaining to water or heavens. Once you add that sha, mayum turns into shamayim, water turns into heavens or pertaining to water, because the physical properties of the atmosphere, the space, the atmosphere once you leave Earth is pertaining to or similar to water. as far as, you know what I'm saying, weightlessness and all of that, right? You get the point. So just make sure you understand those things. It might be helpful, you know what I'm saying, as I have it on the board here, it might be helpful to just make a note as I did here. But whatever, you know what I'm saying, this is your cheat sheet, you know what I'm saying? So whatever is most helpful for you, go ahead and do that, right? What else we got? So we got preposition, possessive. So you got your tenses, right? So we talked about why. Right? And what or how a why affects a root word when it comes at the beginning, middle, or end of a word. Right? That's something that you want to keep an eye on because it's very easy to, you know what I'm saying, you could get confused. I see a lot of brothers get confused when they see a why, you know what I'm saying, at any point of a phrase or a word and get confused as to what that why is doing to that word. So, you know, we have to understand that when you see a why in the word and it comes at the beginning, as we already looked at, and it kind of ties into the preposition of possessives, right? You see in the beginning, we know it's a preposition because a preposition comes before the root word. So if you say a why, which would look like this, right? In the Assyrian, right? If you see a why at the beginning, you know there's a preposition meaning and, right? Right. You see it in the middle, or gonna come back to the middle. When you see it at the end, you know it's a possessive because it comes after the root word, right? And as you, just a side note, you're always, that's why finding a root word is number one on the list, right? Because you're always, the meaning of the characters is always gonna heavily depend on its position to the root word, right? So that's why that's number one. So you want to identify your root word. If you're using Bible Hub, Blue Letter Bible, two-letter lookup, you can just, you know what I'm saying, follow the concordance code, click the concordance code in Bible Hub, find your root word and two-letter lookup or whatever you got to do. It's easy to find the root word. And then once you find the root word, you can break down the rest of this stuff, right? And find out the context that's based around the root word. So just keep that in mind, that the position of a character in the beginning, middle, or end of a root word, or the position of a character is heavily dependent on where it is in the root word. So just keep that in mind. So you got beginning, it's a preposition. At the end, it's a possessive, right? At the end, it means he, his, or it, right? If you see it in the middle, right? That's where this comes into play. If you see a Y in the middle of a word, it means it's a doing tense, right? Something's being done, right? So we got Lashawan, as we went over the body parts a couple weeks ago. Lashawan is tongue. Lashawan is talking about what the tongue is doing, because that Y is in the middle of the root word. So when you see a Y in the middle of a root word, it means something's being done. All right, that's something to keep in mind. And remember, Lashawan Qadash is not English. So, you know what I'm saying? When you first come into the concept, you know what I'm saying? Just for your understanding, you might, it might be helpful to understand it as like ing, because you know in English, when you see something being done, you usually see ing, right? But this isn't English, right? So when you're first learning, you know what I'm saying, if it's helpful, just think ing. Like when you see Lashawan, tongue, Lashawan, tonguing, or what the tongue is doing, which is speaking a language. So tongue, Lashawan, becomes language, right? So to understand that, you might just be able to just think ing, and then boom, you got it. Now, when you see y in the middle of a word, you know ing to apply that. But, you know what I'm saying, the real understanding of it is something that's just being done. It's a doing word, right? Something is being done. You're focused on what the tongue is doing, right? What else? Also, you want to be very familiar with pluralizations, right? Now there's a couple different things that you're gonna run into, right? And it's very important to get this in your notes, right? So if you come across these things, you could just take the cheat sheet and then, or you know what I'm saying, this could be something that you just study daily, right? Or study every week. You know what I'm saying? Right before Lashawan Qadash class, you just familiarize yourself with these things or just have it ready in front of you. But all of these things are going to be things that you're going to constantly run into. So it's important to just understand these and have them written down. All right. So next you got your plural, right? So it's a couple ways to pluralize a word, right? So you got, for example, using the word ak, right? We're going to use a word that we use all the time, ak. So we got ak, which means brother, right? If you got multiple brothers, you can use yum, right? So ak yum, meaning brothers, right? So that's a masculine, or that's a masculine plural, right? Now, if you got multiple sisters, right? So the word for sisters or sister is akwaf, right? And we're gonna get into that in a minute. So you got waf, or you got akwaf for sister. How do you pluralize sister, right? You will use a different pluralization, right? So yum would be plural for men. If you wanted to go ahead. Yeah. Say that again? Yun, right. Damn right. So you got yun, right? So the yum would be plural for men. Yun would be plural for sisters, right? So it's important to make that distinction, right? And we'll do one more. So these are gonna be regular plurals, right? So you got yum for brothers, yun for sisters, and then if you're talking to a mass of people, right? So a group of people, brothers and sisters, right? Then you'll see one of these possessors, come, right? So you got And we're gonna probably run into a couple of these tonight as we go through the scriptures. But just it's good to just keep these in your notes, and then as we go through it, then you'll be able to understand it in total once we run into it in practical use. So for right now, you can just write it down, and then we're gonna run into it. Right? You got come, right, which is a masculine pluralization. It's to say y'all, right? You know what I'm saying? Your oppressor's language, you know what I'm saying? Your oppressor will look at you like, you know what I'm saying, sideways, or as if you're a, what's the word they like to use? Inferior, or, you know what I'm saying, a reckless people for having, you know what I'm saying, for saying y'all, you know what I'm saying? You don't know how to speak, you don't know how to speak proper English. That's what they would say. But this is the oldest language. And every other language is a derivative of this language, the Lashawan Qadash. So us saying y'all, you know what I'm saying, that's, you know what I'm saying, that's just our culture. That's just how we talk. And that's always has been. And every other language is based off of the Lashawan Qadash, right? So this word right here is y'all. So if you see this in the scriptures, just know we're talking about one person talking to a group of people, right? It's y'all, right? I'm talking to y'all, right? And then so we got yum being a masculine plural, yun being a feminine plural. Now we got come being a masculine plural from talking to y'all, right? Now how would I say y'all feminine? Like if I'm talking to multiple women, right? We got yum, yun, we got come. Right. Right, damn right. And a lot of times you'll see like yucca, and we're gonna get into that too, like yucca or yuckun, right? So we know that, but we're gonna get into that. But yeah, we're gonna get into that in just a minute. But it's good to just have this in your notes so that you can reference it. So when you see this on Saturday during Sabbath service, it's not foreign to you, right? All right, so we got plurals. Okay, Salakia, one other thing too, right? So now we got the regular plurals. Now you might see some irregular plurals, right? And I'm gonna just get this down in your cheat sheet. Under plural, you see how I have the notes organized, right? So it's I have the notes categorized. So you got the tenses, the preposition, the possessive, and the plurals all categorized, right? It's good to take good, concise, and organized notes so that you can reference it and know what you're looking at, right? It's really not helpful if you're not taking organized notes. If you're just writing random things anywhere on a piece of paper, you're gonna come back 2-3 weeks later and be like, what the hell am I looking at, right? So it's good to take good organized notes, right? So we got plurals. These are regular plurals, right? All right. We're gonna refresh ourselves on some irregular plurals that you should have in your notes. All right. So we got some plurals that end with this suffix here, right? Wath. Now we just talked about ak being for brothers and akwath for being sisters, right? So in our minds, we automatically might think, oh, well, you know what I'm saying? Wath is feminine, right? Well, you don't want to think like that, right? So wath can be applied as feminine in some cases, but there are some cases where wath can be applied as a plural, right? So like, for example, karab is sword. Karab is sword, right? Swords, a regular plural will be yum. So we will automatically want to say karab yum, but that's not the case. For multiple swords is karab wath, right? So it's just something you have to understand as an irregular plural. So when you see it in the scriptures, you just have to pay attention to the context. So as you're reading through the scriptures on Saturday, Sabbath service, you know what I'm saying? Read it in the Lashawan Qadash, but when you see that suffix, you'll have to just look at the English and be like, okay, are we talking about a pluralization of something, or are we talking about a feminine or a servile tense? And we're gonna get to that too. You got wath as an irregular plural. And then you also have, you say a tha at the end of a word, right? That's also an irregular plural. That's talking about categories, like a category or something. A couple of weeks ago, we went over father versus fathers, right? So father is Abba. Fathers is Abath. It wouldn't be Abba Yum, right? Because no one person has two fathers. You know what I'm saying? This isn't, you know what I'm saying? This isn't our oppressor's language and our oppressor's culture. So, you know what I'm saying? No man is born with more than one physical father. But you do have categories of fathers. That's what this thought is. It's categories. So you have your father, your father is a category of a father, and then you have your grandfather. It's a different category. And then you have great grandfather. That's another category of fathers, right? So when you see tha, just think categories, right? You might see it behind like let me think. You see like animals, right? Like, so we learned in Genesis that the Most High created you know what I'm saying, all different types of animals when he created the animal, when he created fish, birds, and you know what I'm saying, things like that. Right? So behind those words, you might see a tha because you got different categories of fish, different categories of birds, different categories of creeping things, different categories of, you know what I'm saying, beasts that are, you know what I'm saying, beasts that walk on, you know what I'm saying, all fours, fowls of the air, different categories of trees, you know what I'm saying, things like that. So you might see that tha talking about categories. All right. That's what you would call an irregular plural. And then you might have some plurals that don't change, right? Like you got water, mayum. And then plural waters would also be mayum, right? So just want to keep those things in mind as well, right? Thing is going to be servile tense, right? Servile tense. So you got, as we talked about earlier when we were talking about feminine, right? Or what you would perceive as feminine. Like we looked at wath, right? Wath can be a regular plural, or it could be used as feminine, right? Or what we perceive to be as feminine. So we got ak, which is brothers, wath, which is sisters, right? Well, what this is is servile tense, right? So that means, so like, one second. So that means one thing is serving another. So ak is brothers. Akwaf has that waf behind it because it's a servile tense. So anything that is serving something will have a servile tense. So like the sisters has ak has waf behind it to make akwaf because the sisters serve the priest, right? They serve the school. As far as rank, it's talking about rank because we all serve each other. You know what I'm saying? I don't want us to get all caught up in, you know what I'm saying, servitude, right? Everybody's serving one another, but there is rank and order so that we do have structure, right? So we got waf, right? That's going to be a example. That's going to be an example of a servile tense, right? So you see waf behind the word, for example, right? So you got malak, right? Malak, which means king. You got malak, then you add waf behind malak. And malak king becomes malak waf, kingdom, right? Because the kingdom serves the king so that the king can serve the kingdom. So this is a servile tense. And you'll see a servile tense more likely behind sisters because of rank and structure and order, right? As it says in scriptures, the Christ serves the Most High, or the rank and order is the Most High, Christ, men, women, and the children, right? That's how the Most High set it up. So you'll see waf behind things that apply to sisters more likely because of the structure that the Most High set up, right? Nothing more, nothing less. All right. Another example of servile tense that you're gonna want to look out for is a ha at the end of a word, right? So like for example, and you'll see this a lot in like sisters' names, right? So like if a sister's getting their name, they'll have our names are from words, right? From words that we use all the time. But for a sister, to make it a little bit softer, more feminine, you might see this servile tense in a name, right? To, you know what I'm saying, indicate that it's a sister, to make it softer, make it more feminine. But it's just another example of a servile tense. Like, for example, just to reiterate, so you got shalom, right? Shalom means peace. Then you add ha, right? And just so you can understand, I'm writing in the Lashawan Qadash, right? We already know that Lashawan Qadash is written from right to left, right? So Sha La Ma. We know a ha looks like this, right? In the Assyrian. So you got shalom, shalom, right? Now, to put this in a servile tense, so we know shalom means peace. But to put the word peace in a servile tense, you just add a ha. So now shalom becomes shalomah, right? Which means, so shalom turns from peace to peaceful. And shalomah is how you would say Solomon in the Hebrew, right? His name means peaceful or servant, because this is a servile tense, servant of peace, right? What else you got? All right. I think that's pretty much it, right? So we're gonna leave that right there, and then we're gonna get into Bible Hub and go through the scriptures, right? So we got, let's see, Deuteronomy chapter 28, or yeah, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68.
When Eve did to Adam, I just pray my love don't lie to me. Swing the iron like Samson, I can't let no holder lie to me. I don't feel these rappers, all they lies is hypocrisy. Ain't no competition, ain't no rivalry. Nigga think I'm playing, I don't hear one word they saying. This shit light work. Think Muhammad one of us, he might lose his life first. Suckle up and stay alert. Another cop distress the nigga. He a demon, this an exorcism. Watch I bless the nigga. You took that open blood, then you know I'm gon' get active with you. Fuck the opposition, I see vision. Let me paint the picture. Rappers claim they spit and I ain't listening. Is in fact the If revenge was a woman, now I stroke that bitch like Jackie. So time war, we gon' run the summer. It's gon' be historical. Thought they making plays, made them niggas call the audible. Ask who run this shit, but that question is rhetorical. Bitch, I'm the one, me cookies with the oil. I'ma get them crackers, hell, should've never kidnapped my family. I came to do damage, bet I be the last nigga standing. Do a life sentence for my niggas, pray you understand me. I might put a switch on this Glock and call it young baby. How you real triggering on them dots? You a bird feeder, claiming he a demon. What's a demon to a cold leader? When he said something, I ain't hear him. This shit light. It ain't about who got the gun, it's about who gon' up that pipe first. I turn a bad situation to a game change. Bring soldiers from the dead, just raised up the chain. Free shots, I'ma look like Aaron Jones when I run it. Never bite the hand that feeds you, you'll never get that hand back. He bitchin' about 10%, I don't wanna hear none of that. He dropping sword, fuck him, just make sure you get that cover back. Look around, he ain't with us, probably cause he never was. Now my chin like you with the angels for your brothers. Everybody wanna be Richard Porter, God kill him like Alpo. Play if he want, it's laying in the trunk like Lee Malvo. I'm a certified woman's ass nigga, I am not a toy. Hey, out with that hollow side, yeah, this the real McCoy. Feel like Gullah Jack when I'm in Fayetteville, you feel your boy. Still up on my brain, still I think that's all that I do. The way I get that boy lost, they gon' start to call him Elroy. Fuck his game, pop out on them demons like I'm Hellboy.
All right, slap for that. All right, so what we just went over was a cheat sheet, you know what I'm saying? A couple things that you're gonna find on your cheat sheet. It's gonna be a couple more things, right? It's a couple more things that you're gonna want to look out for, but these are just the main things that you want to keep in mind. And as you see these things too, like right here, right, as we just went over, a serve-out, some things in a serve-out tense, you're also gonna see in a irregular plural tense, right? These are all going to be under your tenses, right? So when you see this slack you. When you see this suffix right here on a root word, when you see this suffix on a root word, you're gonna have to. You might wonder, like, okay, well, I see waf here on this root word. Is it a servile tense indicating servitude, rank, order, structure, or is it talking about an irregular plural? Well, that's where you're gonna have to apply some practical knowledge and context, right? So just read the scripture in the English. You know what I'm saying? If you're reading in Bible Hub, it's when you're reading in any like the Blue Letter Bible, Bible Hub, or the Hebrew to English, Give me 1 second, let me look at it, just double check. Or the Hebrew to Greek, dictionary, right? If you're reading it, it's going to say the Lashawan Qadash above it, right? And then up underneath it, it's going to have a concordance code, and it's going to have it in English as well. So as you're reading in the Lashawan Qadash, you're going to be able to see the context in the English. So you'll be able to decipher. So like if you're looking at a word and it says akwaf, right? And then up under it says sister. They're like, well, sister isn't plural. So with that being said, you can rule that out. You can rule irregular plural out. It's not an irregular plural. If you see akwaf, you see the waf, you're not going to think that that's an irregular plural because sister is singular. One sister is akwaf, or akwaf is one sister. So with that being ruled out, now you know that we're using a servile tense. So akwaf is a servile tense, right? Or if you're talking about, like we talked about before, karab waf, all right? So what are we talking about? You'll read underneath, it'll say karab waf, and underneath in English, it'll say swords with an S on it. Now in English, we know that that's plural. So vice versa, you can rule out servile tense. And now you understand that karab waf is an irregular plural because now we're talking about multiple swords, right? So that's how you rule out the confusion when you see a suffix in more than one category, right? Let me see. And just to be aware, you're gonna most likely be adding things to your list on your cheat sheet as you go. So as we go, as we look through scriptures, as we run into things, as our memories are jogged, as we run into new concepts, as we get new breakdowns and all of that, we're going to be adding certain things to our cheat sheet. All right. So if you're watching at home, I hope you're getting it down. If you're in class, I hope you're getting it down. If not, feel free to pause and rewind as you need to so that you can get this down. Because if you don't have this cheat sheet, if you don't have this base understanding of the Hebrew, then you're going to be tripped up. Salakia. You're going to be tripped up as you're reading through, right? Which is what we're about to do. All right, so as you're reading through, you might get tripped up if you don't have these basic things, right? We're going to go to Deuteronomy 28 and like 68. You know what I'm saying? The best thing for us to do, you know what I'm saying, especially as we starting off, as we trying to get comfortable, more and more comfortable with the Lashawan Qadash, best thing to do is to just look at scriptures in the Old Testament that we are familiar with, like milk scriptures that we use often, that we look into, you know what I'm saying, that are like foundational scriptures maybe when you taking your officer's test as you're a trooper, or, you know what I'm saying, things that you hear often, things that you're familiar with, right? So that you can get the understanding. One second, let me read it in English. Like you, bear with me 1 second. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Right? So we already know Deuteronomy 28. I already know Deuteronomy 28 is talking about the curses, right? The rewards that we'll receive for following these laws, statutes, and commandments, and keeping, you know what I'm saying, following after the Most High, not, you know what I'm saying, turning away from our culture. And then on the opposite side, the curses that will come upon us if we disobey the Most High and disobey these laws, statutes, and commandments and turn away from our culture. And this is a very important milk scripture, because this is how you know that Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are the true chosen people of the Most High. So when we read this scripture, or when, you know what I'm saying, when brothers read this scripture, you know what I'm saying, if they haven't been taught properly in the ISUPK under Commander General Yohana, you know what I'm saying, we see a lot of brothers, they might try to say that, you know what I'm saying, this is only pertaining to Black people. And they'll try to say that this doesn't, they'll try to remove Hispanics and Native Americans from being part of the 12 tribes of Israel. And that is completely, it's a lot to me. But that is completely inaccurate, because these, let me go ahead and just go to, as it says in, fuck you. I'm just paraphrasing for time's sake, right? So in the same chapter, in Deuteronomy chapter 28, it says that these curses will be on us for a sign, right? So when we see these things, when we going through these things, when we see our people going through all of these curses, that'll be a sign to our people that these are the people that the Lord chose and the people that the Lord did not choose. That'll be a sign to show who the Lord chose, right? By the reward and the curses that you receive, right? And we're going to get into all of that, right? But it's so important to understand this. It's so important to understand Deuteronomy 28, because that's how we are able to identify and recognize who our people are, right? We're going to get right into it. We're going to see why this is so important. Just bear with me 1 second. And as we're going through this, as I'm writing this on the board, you know what I'm saying, you can be following along. And just to let you know, to keep your cheat sheet on hand. Or keep your cheat sheet on hand, because a lot of these concepts that we just went over, you're going to see in this chapter, or this Salakia, this verse that we're breaking down. Right? And it's so important that we're going over Deuteronomy 28 and verse 68, because this is what makes brothers become selfish and decide, you know what I'm saying, that, you know what I'm saying, only black people are a part of the 12 tribes of Israel. And then, you know what I'm saying, we tend you know what I'm saying, unlearned brothers will try to rule out Hispanics and Native Americans who are also part of these 12 tribes. And we're gonna get into it. We're gonna prove that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are all part of the 12 tribes of Israel. So it says again, Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 68, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Right? So now, once you hear that, you will go into Egypt again with ships, right? Egypt is synonymous with bondage, and we're going to get right into that. It's right there on the board. We're going to break it down. But Egypt is synonymous for bondage, right? Now, you will go into bondage again with ships, right? Who went into bondage on ships? Well, the first thing that people usually think of is the transatlantic slave trade, which is absolutely correct. The so-called African Americans or black people went into slavery on ships, on cargo slave ships, right? It's absolutely correct. But just like how now in textbooks that they're pushing in elementary schools, they're calling the transatlantic slave trade the transatlantic migration. So now they're whitewashing your history and saying that your slave trade, where you were packed at the bottom of a slave ship, dying for months, you know what I'm saying, sitting in filth for months, packed like sardines, they're calling it a migration, as if we just voluntarily came over into this land to do labor because they want to portray us as inferior. That is absolutely incorrect. So just like how they did that, how they whitewashed black history, so-called, they did the same to Hispanic and Native American history, man. They did the exact same thing to the Hispanics and Native Americans. Like, you know what I'm saying, the transatlantic slave trade, that was around the early 1600s, right? Like 1609, if I'm not mistaken. Let me, what's the early 1600s, right? Transatlantic slave trade. Well, you know what I'm saying, as they taught you in elementary school, Christopher Columbus in 1492 sailed the ocean blue. You know what I'm saying? They made that rhyme so that we remember, and tried to make it seem like he came over and this land was just, he just discovered this land and just moved in, you know, and, you know what I'm saying, everything was all peaceful. But what they didn't tell you about is the blood and the theft, or the rape, rob, and murder that they did to black, or to the people who are already here. And the slave trade started in South America, right? Where the so-called Hispanics, you know what I'm saying, were. So before the 1600s, before the transatlantic slave trade, it happened to Hispanics first, right? And they were taken out of their land. Some were forced into slavery, into captivity where they were. Some were shipped off into Portugal, into Spain, into Italy, to Europe to do slave trade. So just like we were shipped into bondage or Egypt by way of ships, so were Hispanics in South America. And we already know that this land was stolen from the Native Americans, the First Nation people here in America. And the same thing happened to them. They were stolen and they were shipped off to these countries. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? This is Lashawan Qadash, so I ain't gonna get too much deeper. I ain't gonna get too deep into the history, but there were plenty of instances where the Native Americans were forbidden to keep to keep their culture in America. And if they tried to keep their culture, they were shipped off to these strange countries, right? To all the countries that I named, Portugal, Spain, Italy, all over Europe, and all over these strange countries, even Africa. You know what I'm saying? Africans ain't no better either. You know what I'm saying? We try to make Africans synonymous with so-called black people in America when they themselves know that they are not these people. Our people were shipped over there too to become slaves, man. So all blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans suffered this curse that's in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. These things happen to blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Right? So, you know what I'm saying? So anybody that's telling you that Hispanics and Native Americans ain't part of the 12 tribes, the chosen people of the Most High, and that's just foolish and selfish and uneducated, man. You know what I'm saying? We can't be ignorant in our lives, man. We got to pick up a book, man. Get in these scriptures and read our language, or read our records in our language, in our original language. And we're going to get right into it real quick. All right? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Our brothers and sisters, you know what I'm saying? Our Hispanic and Native American brothers and sisters were sent to boarding schools, man, for their culture to be stripped away from them, man. You can't tell me that they ain't part of these 12 tribes. So you got Waha Salakia. 1 second. Go back to it real quick. We got Wayashayabka, Yahweh, Matazarium, Ba Anayawa. Right? Let me see. Matazarium by. Okay, right. So we got Waha Shayabka, Yahweh, Matazarium, Ba Anayawa. Right? Waha Shayabka, Yahweh, Matazarium, Ba Anayawa. Right? As you're reading it, I'm repeating it for a reason. As you're reading it, your ears, based on what we just went over, your ears should pick up things that we just went over on this cheat sheet, right? Waha, right? Waha, Shayab, Ka, Yahweh. We know what Yahweh is, right? Yahweh, we already know that Yahweh is what? You know, Yahweh is going to go ahead and. You said, not quite. Not Christ, but. Right, the Most High. So. Yahweh. You know that Yahweh is the Lord's name, right? So. Waha Shayabka, Yahweh, the Lord's name. Makazar Yum, Ba Anaya Waf. All right, so we're gonna start with the first one, right? Break it down real quick. Or actually, just for time's sake, just want to get into, right? Ba Anaya Waf. Right? So we know that prepositions come before a root word. So when we say ba in the beginning of a root word, we can automatically, 9 times out of 10, the best place to start would be to see if there are any prepositions. Like we saw the first 4 steps that you take. You look at the root word, identify the root word, identify any prepositions, possessives, and then tenses. So we can see if this is a preposition, right? So if this is a preposition, we're gonna come back to it. If this is a preposition, then that means the root word comes after the preposition. All right, so we got ba, anaya, wa. And most root words are going to be 2 to 3 characters long. So we got ba being a preposition. Ba means in or on. So you can just a wild guess, right? You can just take the next 3 characters, 1, 2, 3, and assume that this is a root word. Anaya. Right? We'll come back to that. So this is going to be a root word. Now, if you're reading on Bible Hub, you can click on the concordance code and get the root word. All right. We'll come back to that, and then we're going to get there just for time's sake. So we got ba anaya. Now we're left with this. So we got possessives that come after, right? So this is either a possessive or a tense. That's the next thing that we should be looking for, right? So we got a wa, which is a possessive, but then we got a tha at the end. So since tha isn't a possessive that comes at the end, you don't see tha on here. You can see if there's any tenses that apply here. So is wath a tense? We recognize wath? You want to give it a shot? Or what wath means in a... It could mean 2 things, right? Yeah. Right, so it could be what we would look at as feminine or servile tense, or it can be no. It'll be what did I say earlier? Oh, servile or plural. So how do we know whether we're talking about servile tense or plural tense? Context, right? That's it. You have to look at the context. So the scripture says, all right, so we're going to read it again. It says, and the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Okay. Ships. So what are we talking about now? Is it servile or is it plural? Plural. Right. So this is a plural tense. No time cry. Give yourself a hand. Okay. So with this being plural, we know this is in or on. This root word, anaya, no. This wath means plural, right? Mm-hmm. And you knew that because of the word that I used in English. What word did I use? Ships. Ships. So this makes it plural. So this word right here without the plural is what? Right there. Right. What's the plural word? Ships. Oh, right. Ship. Ship. Anaya is ship. So the Most High, or like, let me go back to the scripture. The Lord shall bring thee into Egypt. Yahweh shall bring you into. All right. So like it 1 second. So the Most High, will bring you back into Egypt, all right, on ships. All right. Okay. The Yahweh will bring you back into Egypt onto ships. So this right here, Waha, and you know, Wah here means and the Shayab means to return. So with that being said, these being prepositions and return, the ka coming after the root word is a possessive, meaning you. So and you, or Yahweh will return you on ships, right? Now this is the word that we're gonna have to this is the word that's going to, Lord willing, help brothers and sisters understand okay. I see you, Salakia. Salakia, I ain't see you in the chat. I see you yelling from stuff. Pre. We got, and the Lord will return you on ships. Where are we being returned to? Now the scriptures, say that again. Most of the time, raise your hand, but you're correct. Now, this is where things tend to get confusing, right? And so somehow, you know what I'm saying, brothers and sisters will read this and the Lord will bring you to Egypt again with ships and think that this only pertains to black people, so-called African Americans, right? Or they might even go as far as to include so-called West Indians, the Jamaicans, or Haitians, right? They might even include Africans somehow. I don't know how that happens, but this is the understanding that you got to have, right? So we just said, as I read this, Waha Shayabka Yahweh Matazar Yum Ba Anayawa, right? So Matazar Yum, you know what I'm saying, based off of what we just went over, Matazar Yum. So we know that, so if I say Ak Yum, if I say Ak, what does that mean? Brother. If I say Ak Yum, brothers, plural. So if I say Matazar Yum, what do you think that Yum means? Ak is brother. Ak Yum is brothers, plural, right? So we're gonna get to that. Just what does Yum mean? Plural. Exactly. That's absolutely correct. Right. So this is plural, right? So now, since we isolated the plural, now we have this root word right here, matazar. So what does matazar mean? Right? If you go into the concordance, I got you. Don't even worry about it. We go into the concordance and click on that concordance code. Now, matazarium, just like what you said was correct earlier. I just wanted to break it down a little bit. Matazarium is the biblical name for Egypt. Matazarium. But when you break that word down even further, like you said, yum is plural. So that means this is a root word. You want to know what this word means right here? You want me to tell you? Let me go ahead and tell you. This word right here means troubles. Let me go to it real quick. This word right here Salakia. So what you want to do is just go to 2-letter lookup and type Ma Khazar, just like you see it here, right? Ma Khazar and Abra. Now the first definitions you're going to see is something type, trouble, straits, distress, pain. All of these are basically describing an uncomfortable or troublesome or distressful situation. So when the scriptures say the Lord will bring you into Egypt again with ships, that word Egypt means troubles, strain, distress. So the Lord will bring you into distress and troubles by way of ships. That's what this word right here means. That's what this word means, matazar. So matazar yum, if matazar means trouble, you add the plural yum at the end, that means troubles, right? Mm-hmm. Has the Lord not brought us into America? Has America not been troublesome for us for hundreds of years? Have not. Now here's the thing though. When you take out the Egypt, when you understand the word matazarium and you understand its true meaning, now you can not exclusively think of so-called African Americans who went through the transatlantic slave trade, because the blacks or the Hispanics and Native Americans went through the same thing. They went to these other countries in Europe and suffered troubles by way of ship. They were shipped to Portugal, to Italy, to Spain, to they were shipped off to India, to Germany, to Russia, to Africa. They were shipped there too. As a matter of fact, when Christopher Columbus came over to so-called explore and discover the Americas, he came over with a team, and one of the people on his team was Louis de Torres. Let me make sure I got that name correct. Who is Louis de Torres?
According to Wikipedia, Luis de Torres was Christopher Columbus's interpreter on his first voyage to America.
Who is Louis de Torres?
According to Wikipedia, Luis de Torres was Christopher Columbus's interpreter on his first voyage to America.
So, in 1492, during Christopher Columbus's first voyage to America, he had an interpreter. Now, why would he need an interpreter? If he's going to a strange new land where he's expecting to discover a land that's never been inhabited, why would he need an interpreter? What is he interpreting? If this is some strange new land that he just discovered. Well, maybe he knew that there would be people there. Right? Now, if you read on, if you read further, it'll tell you. If you read on, it'll tell you why this person was chosen specifically for this voyage. It says Luis de Torres was Christopher Columbus's interpreter on his first voyage to America. De Torres was a converso, right? So he was a, long story short, he was a so-called Jewish man, right? So that's what he was a converso, right? He converted to what you know as Judaism today, right? Chosen by Columbus for his knowledge of Hebrew, right? So he was an interpreter that was chosen for this particular voyage to go to the Americas to discover it. But he took an interpreter that understood Hebrew fluently. Look, man, something ain't adding up, man. I'm starting to think, you know what I'm saying, based on this, maybe he knew that there were Hebrews, Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans speaking Hebrew in this land. Maybe he knew that. Right, so he took a Hebrew speaking translator or Hebrew speaking interpreter to this land where he so-called discovered it. And then afterward, he ended up enslaving those people, stealing their land, murdering those people, shipping them off to Portugal and to Spain for cheap labor to build up Europe. And he so-called discovered it. Yeah, something ain't adding up. But now that this is why it's so important to understand the language, the original language. Because if you read it in English, you're going to see Egypt. And we know that our initial captivity in Exodus was in Egypt. But, you know what I'm saying, if you don't understand the language, you don't think, well, when did we go to Egypt? Well, now that we're breaking this down, Matazar means troubles, straits. Let's see what straits mean. Like it, bear with me 1 second. Straits, definition.
Here's the definition of strait. A narrow passage of water connecting two seas or two other large areas of water.
Okay. All right, so you got the first definition, right? Which is what this the phone just read, right? The second definition is used in reference to a situation characterized by a specified degree of trouble or difficulty. Matazar means trouble. Matazar Yum is the name for Egypt, which you see in the scriptures in the English. Matazar Yum also means troubles. But when you read these scriptures, just know that when it says in the Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68, we'll be sent into Egypt by way of ships, it's talking about troubles, distress, straits, difficulty by way of ships. And that happened to Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. All right. But, you know what I'm saying? That's why it's so important to understand this culture, man. This language that we teach every single Friday, man. That's why we do this every week, man. That's why we have Sabbath service, so that we can get familiar with this language. Because if you just read it in the English, you're not going to understand this. You're not going to understand that this word means the condition that we were sent in by our oppressor by way of ships. Well, you know what I'm saying? With that, we're gonna end it right there. And you know what I'm saying, Lord willing, you was able to get down all that information. You was able to get down all that information on that cheat sheet. You know what I'm saying? It's so important to understand that so that you can have practical knowledge like this, man. Because we just did the research. We just did it right here. You know what I'm saying? I'm not making this up off the top of my head. We went right into the scriptures and broke down a root word like we talked about at the beginning of the class, and then we broke down a root word, and then we looked at the suffix. That's what that word means. Matazaria means troubles. But with that, you know what I'm saying, we're going to end it right there. You know what I'm saying? Thawada thought of brothers and sisters who endured throughout the class. You know what I'm saying? Next class, we going you know what I'm saying, get back into the scriptures. We're going to compound on the cheat sheet, you know what I'm saying, as we go. And just prepare your questions. Share the class, like the class. That, you know, Shalom, Yahweh, Bashim, Yahshua, Brakatham to all the brothers. Shalom, Yahweh, Shmala, Thumb, Bashim, Yahshua, to all the sisters.